I'm Zach Long, and welcome to the first edition of the Rock and Metal History series. For the first edition, I will be getting into the surprising background of Alice Cooper. A lot of people are probably familiar with Alice Cooper. He's been a long-time rock and roll legend, but a lot of people seem to be unable to separate fact from fiction when it comes to the upbringing of Alice Cooper. I know different times over the years of going to Alice Cooper concerts and different music festivals. I've been talking with some of my friends who like rock and roll music and things. It seems that everyone almost has like a different story about Alice Cooper or a different idea of his upbringing or some of the things that played a part into the band. And it turns out that a lot of that is actually fiction. I've been a fan of Alice Cooper since I've been about 10 years old. When I first heard him on the radio, when people used to listen to that, I heard songs like No More Mr. Nice Guy, Billion Dollar Baby, Skulls Out, 18, I mean the typical story of Alice Cooper's hits. But then I started looking into his background over the years and I was kind of surprised because some of what I heard over the years turns out to be more of a rumor than the truth. So I just wanted to make a quick video to kind of touch on some of those points and separate fact from fiction. In the early 1970s, nobody infiltrated the mainstream dark side quite like Alice Cooper. A man using a woman's name, dressed provocatively, with snake-eyed face paint, Alice Cooper was a musical villain like the world had never seen before. Decades before Marilyn Manson and Rob Zombie, Alice was the pinnacle musical demon that parents across the world warned their kids about. Rumors of epic proportions would spread like wildfire, further fueling the idea that the Alice Cooper Band was evil, satanic, and potentially deadly. But few fans know the real truth underneath the original shock rock devil. He wasn't raised in Transylvania, he wasn't the son of a broken home, he wasn't someone who put demonic spells on his audience after a voodoo chicken sacrifice. He was actually the son of an evangelist. Vincent Furnier, a child born into a conservative, late 1940s Detroit, had a very unlikely upbringing to end up being a rock legend. His parents stayed together, and he was raised right in the eyes of the 1950s era standard. Vince was active in the Church of Jesus Christ in his early teenage years, but had to relocate to Arizona thanks to his father's job change. This led to Alice's first exposure to rock and roll, and along with a few friends of his track team, they signed up for the school talent show as a Beatles parody band. They called themselves the Earwigs, and mostly mimicked playing, since only one of them, Glenn Buxton, could actually play guitar at this point in time. After winning the talent show and being the talk of the school, they decided to start an actual band. Vince and his friends used allowance money to buy cheap instruments from the local pawn shop, and they started learning immediately. The Earwigs then became the Spiders. In 1966, the Spiders graduated from Cortez High School, and soon after the band released their second single, Don't Blow Your Mind, an original composition which became a local #1 hit. In 1967, the band had begun to make regular road trips to LA to play shows, and by the end of that year, the band had relocated to Los Angeles. Vincent believed that the band needed a gimmick to succeed, and noticed that other bands were starting to embrace the showman aspect of the stage. This led to another band name change in late 1968. The singer suggested a name reminiscent of a famous alleged axe murderer, Lizzie Borden. And here's where two different versions of the story have been told. One version suggests that the name came to Vincent during a viewing of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. The mix of the peculiar, sinister energy and the smeared makeup worn by Betty Davis caused the name Alice Cooper to pop into his mind, along with an image of a little girl with a lollipop in one hand and a butcher knife in the other. The other version paints the more occult-influenced idea that during band practice, someone brought in a Ouija board, and the name was spelled out letter by letter, ALICECOOPER, after Vince asked a question of who he was in a past life. The legend goes that Alice Cooper was a witch that was killed by Puritans during the Salem witch trials. Soon after the name change, the band started to find their mark. Their stage shows were completely reworked to capture a mix of horror show with vaudeville. Alice Cooper was now the only name Vincent would answer to. He'd be the character 24/7, getting totally overtaken by the alter ego. That commitment and drive was held by the entire band, and eventually gained the attention of Shep Gordon and Frank Zappa, which provided the gateway for the band to claw their way to stardom. After failing to make much of a dent with their first 2 records, the band moved back to Michigan to work on what would become their breakthrough moment, Love It to Death. Led by the success of the single 18, the band started to take off like a rocket. Rumors were just as big as the music, but both were outdone by the spectacle of the stage show. Dead babies, guillotines, electric chairs, fabled chicken sacrifices, and outfits that would make the masses cringe. The Alice Cooper Band soon became one of the pinnacle voices of the alternative music scene. The band embraced bad press just as much as good press, which led them to an undeniable roller coaster ride to being one of the biggest rock acts the globe has ever known. During this time of infamy, the Alice Cooper Band cranked out 4 more albums that kept them climbing the ranks of rock legends. Killer, Schools Out, Billion Dollar Babies, smash hit after smash hit. The band were now selling out venues and started embracing the behind-the-scenes vices that present themselves to the kings of the rock world. Alice would be so drunk, so often, he typically would wake up vomiting blood. And these type of self-destructive behaviors soon dissolved the relationship between the members of the original Alice Cooper Band, causing the lineup to call it quits in 1974. After the split, Alice Cooper soon became synonymous with the man instead of the band, and more albums featuring a new backing band came out to close out the 1970s. Some hits, some misses, but the legend of Alice and his influence over the generations to come were already cemented in history forever. Over the years, Cooper went to rehab, cleaned up his act, and got back in touch with his childhood beliefs. He's no longer Alice Cooper 24/7, but now views it as an actor who gets to play the character Alice at his shows. The change of point of view renewed a motivation in him that led to a late career resurgence that put him back on the top of the rock charts. To this day, he has helped mentor younger artists with drug and alcohol struggles, and as a surprise to some, became known as the ultimate nice guy of the metal scene. Where prior generations assumed him as a demon-possessed young man, he has proven to be a smart, calculated leader of one of the biggest juggernauts the rock scene has ever experienced. If you have never heard much from Alice Cooper, do yourself a favor and check out some of his songs and his albums. It's a nice retro look at what the music climate was back then, and a lot of the songs still hold up well today. He's been one of my favorites since I was a kid, and I think the next generation of rock and metal fans should be well aware of one of the original metal monsters.